3 years ago, I would probably have laughed at you if you told me that HiSilicon was gonna be shipping mobile processors that were competitive with the best CPUs from Qualcomm, Apple, and Samsung. And yet, here we are. Now to be clear, the Kirin 980, and by extension, the Huawei P30 Pro, is not industry leading across the board, falling well behind, well, everyone when it comes to gaming, thanks to its Mali G76 MP10 GPU. But the thing is, it's also not an also-ran, which means that I can no longer safely ignore Huawei's flagship phones as overpriced and underpowered. So the P30 Pro has spent the last 3 weeks in my pocket, and I definitely have some thoughts to share about it. Are you looking for an affordable and reliable VPN? Well, Private Internet Access has got your back. They encrypt your internet traffic and use a safe, protected IP. Check it out today at the link below. If I had to describe its look, I'd say the P30 Pro is slick, both in terms of its clean, curvy industrial design and its finish, which is one of the most slippery that I have ever held. I've actually only encountered a handful of phones that I'm afraid to hold against my ear with my shoulder for fear that they will slip out, but this is definitely one of them. I actually even ended up switching to on-screen buttons rather than gesture control so that I could hold it just a little bit higher and hold onto it better. So a grippy case or a textured dbrand skin is strongly recommended for this one. Other than that though, my main complaints are really audio related. The P30 Pro lacks a 3.5mm caveman jack, which I am still not over, and probably more importantly for most people, it's got a pretty crummy speaker setup. Now the earpiece speaker is handled similarly to LG's G8, with the top portion of the screen actually vibrating against your ear in order to produce sound. Now this has the benefit of making it easier to hear your phone in a crowd, and it takes some of the guesswork out of where you need to position it against your ear. The issue is that it also comes with some drawbacks. Now LG decided to enable their screen speaker as a second speaker to boost output and create a stereo listening effect, but we actually complained that it made the phone noticeably vibrate, so I'm pleased to say that Huawei left that feature out. But that means that the P30 Pro relies solely on its bottom firing speaker for Netflix binging and other content consumption, and frankly, it's just not very good. It's loud enough, but I found it harsh sounding and just not competitive with other flagships. Back to positives though. The lock button is positioned such that I could reach both it and the in-screen fingerprint sensor comfortably without shifting my hand. That was one of my major annoyances with the Galaxy S10 Plus. The volume rocker has no opposing buttons to accidentally mash. The SIM tray can accept both a second SIM or Huawei's nano memory card, and is that an IR blaster? It is! AV and home automation fans rejoice! It honestly, as positive as all that is though, it wasn't until I started goofing around with the camera that I really considered switching to the P30 Pro as my daily driver. Now, there are gonna be other people that are gonna cover its merit as an artsy photography phone, but there are some killer features for normies like me as well, with the headline one being, of course, the hybrid 50 times zoom that uses a combination of the 40 megapixel main shooter and the 8 megapixel 5 times optical zoom lens that uses a novel periscope technique to bounce incoming light off of an angled mirror and then reflect it at the sensor that's 90 degrees offset. Now obviously, 50x zoom is hand-wavy enhance nonsense. I mean, you can't just enhance past the data that you've collected. But their software hybrid zoom technique, assisted by the optical image stabilization on both of those sensors, actually worked far better than I expected, yielding usable images at anywhere from 25 to 35 times zoom, as long as you've got a steady hand or something to rest the phone against, because that is truly a lot of zoom. It's darn impressive though. The other big star of the show is the new RYYB yellow subpixel configuration of the main sensor that allows it to collect an advertised 40% more light, helping the P30 capture some truly game-changing images under very dark conditions. So that's really, really cool stuff. It's just that unfortunately, it didn't work out quite as well for me as I hoped. For one thing, you need to understand that phone camera lenses are not the same as real camera lenses. You're not just changing out the glass on a modular mount like on a DSLR. So on the P30 Pro, each of those 3 lenses is actually a completely separate camera. So if you, like me, were imagining then that you could get amazing stable video of your kid's poorly lit performance from the back of the gymnasium, think again. The telephoto lens, aside from capturing at a lower 8 megapixel resolution, has a conventional sensor behind it with a completely different image processing pipeline. And that's never more clear than when you switch cameras in the middle of a recording and watch the colors go all wonky for a second. With that said, that is a pretty cool feature, being able to switch like that. On that note though, that's about the only cool thing that I could find about video recording on the P30 Pro. It's pretty disappointing overall, with very poor processing of its rolling shutter effect, watch the way my head stretches here, and occasionally really low audio levels that annoyed pretty much everyone who's viewed my YouTube stories over the last few weeks. So in summary, the camera's fine. It's more than fine. It's the best that I've ever used from a Chinese cell phone company. And this comparison in particular makes the Note 9 look decidedly last gen. But let's be realistic. It's not godly, and when you're running around snapping pics of your daily life, even its fancy yellow pixels and multiple exposures are not gonna be able to combat squirmy children, and its occasional complete ball drop, like the yellow cast on this shot, and this spectacular autofocus fail, are gonna come up now and again. Fortunately, the P30 Pro is not a one-trick pony. It's got a lot more going for it than just the cameras. Now, 2 of my biggest complaints about the S10 Plus were its exit wound style display notch and its slower, less accurate ultrasonic fingerprint scanner. And Huawei, while falling well short of Samsung's outstanding brightness and color reproduction, not to mention higher resolution, has done a better job IMO of the display's layout, thanks to their minimalistic, symmetrical notch and slightly wider side bezels that reduce accidental activations. Now, I was also initially very pleased to see that they opted for an optical in-screen fingerprint sensor. It's fast, and I had no issues with it during my time with the device. But Samsung also issued a patch for their ultrasonic sensor, I think about a week ago as of filming this right now, and it's way better behaved now, much faster, even when my fingers are really dry. What Samsung still hasn't managed to address for me though is their signature random battery drain. And that is where Huawei blows away anything in their lineup. The last time I had a phone that lasted me 2 full days this consistently, I'm not even sure if it had a color screen. Even with the fairly basic always on display enabled, you could have convinced me that this phone had maybe a 6,000 rather than 4,200 milliamp hour battery. It's that impressive. But this positive note also happens to be a perfect segue into some of the negative things about the P30 Pro's software. One of the ways that Huawei manages such excellent battery life is EMUI's hyper-aggressive background app suppression. And while I definitely appreciate the benefits, I do find their approach a little bit over the top, and I want more control. So first things first, there's this ridiculous card notification that I can't swipe away. Why is that there? Then there's the constant reminders that, like, oh, I don't know, Sonos is running in the background. That's fine, Huawei. I use my speakers. It's okay. And then there's the fact that it puts instant messaging apps. Instant, that's the key. Like Google Hangouts to sleep without my permission. And before you ask, yes, per Huawei's instructions, I disabled that behavior, but it kept doing it anyway. So occasionally, I just won't get my notifications until I open the app, and that's just not acceptable. And while we're at it, neither are non-removable bloatware apps in the year 2019. Also, since I'm on a roll here, please let me pull down the notification shade while the phone is locked, and add a double press gesture that works system-wide to quick launch the camera. While the phone's off, I can double press volume down to launch it, but while it's not, that just goes down 2 volume clicks. Like, okay, to be clear, the software is mostly fine. At least putting my carrier SIM in didn't wipe the phone like Samsung's craptastic implementation. This SMS app has a cool copy text feature for 2FA, that's nice. It's just that overall, I found myself more annoyed by it than not, which just isn't good enough now that iOS, Samsung One, and Google's stock experience are just so polished and do such a great job of staying out of the way. And making matters much worse on the software side, actually XDA has gone as far as to include a disclaimer about this in every article that mentions Huawei or Honor. And so I feel like I should probably raise my pitchfork alongside them. Due to a recent policy change, it is no longer possible to unlock the bootloader on Huawei devices, which means, for better or for worse, you are stuck with EMUI and the feature and security updates that Huawei decides to provide. There will be no extending the life of your phone with Lineage OS or something similar down the line, and that's a real bummer, and it's something that I'd like to see them fix. It's already lame enough that Android fans have to accept the, at best, 2 to 3 years of support compared to Apple's 4 to 5. If you take away rooting, you're basically saying, yep, this thing's going in the landfill. Deal with it. And that's just not cool. So, summary then. I'm really impressed with this thing. I'm gonna be continuing my policy of not ignoring Huawei devices anymore. But I'm also pretty jazzed to go back to my Note 9 because, quite frankly, display notches and long live the headphone jack. Speaking of long live, dbrand is a way to make your devices longer lived without scratches and scuffs all over the back of them. They provide precision fit vinyl skins for laptops, phones, tablets, consoles, controllers, and more. And with dbrand, you can count on your skins being made from high quality 3M vinyl that's true textured. The patented adhesive is guaranteed to leave no residue on your device if you want to change the skin, and their uncompromising precision means that you'll have a factory fit for your device every time. If you have any issues, their customer service robots are easy and great to work with, although when provoked, they will definitely hit back, and their products are affordable and ship worldwide. So check out dbrand at the link in the video description. So thanks for watching, guys. If this video sucked, you know what to do. But if it was awesome, get subscribed, hit that like button, or check out the link to where to buy the stuff we featured in the video description. Also linked down there is our merch store, which has cool shirts like this one, and our community forum, which you should totally join.